green cover's got a significant presence here at the Farm Progress Show. I'm not sure, 50 yards or so at least of various cover crops. And you've got something that says you deal with hundreds of different seeds.
Yeah, so we were able to put in this plot. We have 20 different plots here at the Farm Progress Show this year. So 20 different, each plot is 8 feet wide. A lot of mixes and monocultures of different cover crops. So we've got warm season cover crops and some of the cool season cover crops. Like right behind us here is the cool season soil builder. If the folks can see the butterflies on the mustard plants, they're really enjoying that this morning. So yeah, green cover, we're a seed company based in south central Nebraska and eastern Kansas. We ship seed all over the country. We don't do anything for seed grain, so no seed corn, no seed beans, no seed wheat. It's all cover crops and forages, both annuals and perennials.
Okay. Now, you used a term a while ago indicating it was a soil builder, and I think people are looking at a cover crop, well, I'm going to use cereal rye or I'm going to use buckwheat. Instead, you've used the outcome of what that produces. That seems to be a fairly intelligent marketing offer.
Yeah, we try to name our mixes with the goal of the mix in mind. And so, when it comes to cover crop mixes, yeah, we could call it a mix of, oats, barley, and radish, but that's not the goal. Is not to plant those things. The goal is the outcome of the mix. And so, when folks call into green cover or you look on our website, it's a goal-oriented process. So it's what are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals for the cover crop? And then what's your context? Where are you located? What's your elevation? What's your rainfall? What's your cash crop rotation? When are we planting? When is it terminating? So like you indicated, most of our customers here in Illinois are corn and soybeans farmers, so we're planting after harvest and before the next one. But we often recommend a different cover crop, whether we're going to corn or to soybeans. That the goals ahead of those cash crops are different. So yeah, it's important to consider all of that when making your cover crop selections.
When you say goal-oriented, how many different goals are there?
That's a good question. I suppose as the primary goals, there's probably 20 or 30 different goals we often hear as the sales representatives with the company. When it comes to cover crops, probably the first goal people always mention is erosion reduction. So we're trying to prevent erosion. So whether that's wind or water erosion, every farm in America is susceptible to erosion. After erosion, often it's weed suppression. We're seeing a lot of issues with weeds, your palmer amaranths, pigweeds, those sorts of things, and herbicides are working less and less on those. We're having herbicide-resistant weeds come into the place, into our fields. So weed suppression is a really common goal. Sometimes nitrogen fixing is a goal, right? Inputs are pretty expensive these days, especially with some of the geopolitics playing out across the world. Instead of buying all of our fertility, we can produce it on farm. That's what our grandparents and great-grandparents used to do before things like synthetic fertilizer were readily available. You would plant legumes to fix nitrogen, ahead of cash crops. So nitrogen fixing is a really common goal. Sometimes folks are livestock producers too, and so they're producing corn and soybeans, but they want something to graze either in the fall or the springtime. So forage production is a common goal. Compaction is a goal. These plots where we're standing in here, this is a parking lot that we put seeds into. This ground is compacted. So, we're going to try to bust that up using some plants and using roots instead of coming in with iron. So doing it in a more holistic way that way.
A lot of farmers are probably, when you say nitrogen fixing, what they're worried or concerned about is nitrogen retention and being able to take what nitrogen is in the soil, save it for the next corn crop. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nutrient scavenging is what we often call that.
Okay,
that's a very common goal. So with nutrient scavenging, a lot of times your grasses are a good choice for that. So your cereal rye, oats, barley, those are really good at, developing the root system, going throughout the soil, finding all of the extra fertility left over from the corn crop and holding that in the plants. The other ones that are really popular for nutrient scavenging would be your brassicas, your turnips, your radishes, collards. Those turnip bulbs can get pretty big, and that's a storehouse of nutrients that turnip has been able to collect. When that plant breaks down in the spring after it's dead, it releases that fertility back into the soil.
What questions have farmers asked you here that have stopped by to inquire about what you've got and giving you the opportunity to teach them some of the things that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, most farmers are just interested in how to either start using cover crops on their operation or how to level up. So most of the conversations that I've had, either it's somebody who's considering planting a cover crop, and so they want to know about cereal rye, when to plant it, how late can I plant it, what sort of seeding rates we should be doing, how do I manage that growth in the spring, what things to be aware of, and if they're a little bit more experienced cover croppers and they're already using cereal rye, often they want to try to diversify things. They want to plant multiple species in the fall. So, we're talking about adding legumes like winter peas or hairy vetch or clovers. We start talking about some of those brassicas, the turnips, maybe rapeseed, camelina, diversifying those mixes up a little bit, and then how that management changes in the spring. So, and there's a few farmers that have come by that have been planting really diverse mixes for 10 plus years, and then we start talking really nerdy things about soil microbiology and inoculants and mycorrhiza fungi and some of the that really high level things. But that's not very many conversations. But we can have those if you want.
All right. If some farmer listening to this or watching it has some interest in contacting you, what questions are you going to ask him or her to get that conversation started?
Yeah, so like I said kind of earlier in the interview, when someone calls me up, I need to know your context, the things you're doing, the where are you located, what are you planting, what is the unique things about your operation. If you're farther west, maybe there's some irrigation that's available, moisture situations there, fertility. Sometimes farmers will have different soil challenges. They'll have really compact soils or maybe waterlogged soils. Some of those contextual things, and then the goals of what we're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish? Is it the nitrogen? Is it the weeds? Is it the compaction reduction? What are you after? And then we have a conversation. Basically, everything we sell, the 100 plus species we have in inventory, those are all different tools. And often, we don't need just any tool. We need a specific tool. And sometimes, if it's, we'll start with just a monoculture, and that's the best tool for where that farmer's at. But sometimes a mix of seeds together is a little bit better at going after those goals. And so that becomes the best tool. But yeah, cover crops, planting a cover crop is not normally the goal. The goal is something bigger to make the farm more profitable and more weather resilient is normally the two things we're focused on.
So once you find out those answers that they provide, you can really write them a prescription for the types of seeds, much like a doctor would to cure a problem.
Yeah, basically, and it's not all that different if most farmers are used to talking to their local co-op or their agronomist, like, hey, I have these weeds, what's my prescription to deal with these weeds? We have that conversation. I get to know what the farmer's up to, what they're trying to accomplish, and then I write a seed prescription. I mean, it's a very similar mindset and process. So, and that's what we do, every day of the week. Myself and my other sales reps, the team here at Green Cover, day in and day out, we're focused on helping farmers and ranchers adopt cover crops on their operations. We do have a lot of products for gardeners and homesteaders and also food plotters. The wildlife folks, they love to improve their soil and produce really good forage for deer. So we're just helping everyone trying to improve soil and accomplish their goals. So
Says Dr. Nathan Choat, who writes prescriptions for cover crops for Green Cover. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
thank you.